It's Wednesday, September 10th. And first of all, happy anniversary to me and my Mary. This is the 14th year we've been married. And today on Just Wondering, let's figure out what the old gray wolf might be thinking.
And now a word from our title sponsor.
Eyeing retirement? We aim to turn your nest egg into a paycheck with half the amount you've been led to believe. Fluent Financial combines in-house portfolio design risk management with income-generating investments designed to aid your financial independence. Our goal is to develop an effective portfolio strategy to help you retire sooner and have a better lifestyle. Fluent Financial can also implement a program that allows business owners to install a cash balance plan, which may potentially reduce income tax payments. You've worked hard to become successful. Let us help develop an effective portfolio strategy that works for you. Learn more today about Fluent Financial. Retire sooner, better lifestyle. For more information or to schedule a meeting, visit fluentfinancial.com or call 972-852-4800.
Mike Rhyner has been a significant name in Dallas-Fort Worth radio since around 1980. His resume, he's probably most remembered for being a driving force in helping establish the first all-sports station in Dallas, The Ticket, which has gone on to be fabulously successful. Rhyner spent 25 years at The Ticket, and he and his afternoon partners dominated the ratings in Afternoon Drive. He left after 25 years at The Ticket. The old gray wolf, as he's known, was inducted into the Texas Radio Hall of Fame in 2014, and his podcast, Hello, Michael, my friend, and thanks for the time today. How are you?
I'm great, Norman. Thank you for having me.
It's really good to have you after all these years we've spent together working radio in the same city.
Yes.
We're going to do sports first, and then we're going to talk radio and career later.
Okay.
So, your beloved Rangers, despite loads of injuries and an awful offense, they continue to hang in there just off the edge of the last wild card spot. If they make it to the playoffs, can they actually offer any danger?
I don't think so. I don't think they're a real threat to do much if they do get in there, but the way the season has gone, it would be a real feat to get in there. When spring training was going on and all the publications started rolling out their predictions, I was really, really surprised at how big Baseball America, and I'm speaking of the aggregate, not the publication, but Baseball America seemed to really like the Rangers. And I did not get that. And I still don't understand what Baseball America found so enticing about them, because I didn't think they had a very good off season. And as things turned out for most of the season, it looked like I was right about that. But I don't know. I just never have really been on board with this thing and thought of it as a serious contender. Now, I am amused and interested by this flirtation with contention that they've got going, but I really don't think there's anything to it, even if they do get in there.
Cowboys haven't been to even an NFC Championship game in 30 years. And over the years, the calls have gotten louder and then quieter and then even louder for Jerry to give up the general manager job. But Mike, if he did that and Steven, his son, took over, Could we imagine any real change in the club?
Probably not. Now, I'm leaving the door open a little bit because we really don't know how Steven's going to act. So I'm leaving the door cracked for him to take over and surprise everybody. But realistically, I think it's just going to be more of the same.
The Mavericks won't have Kyrie Irving, a terrific point guard, until midseason. But they have built a team with a lot of veteran, solid players. Do you think once Kyrie Irving's back, they become a real danger in the NBA?
It's really hard to predict legitimate NBA contention before the season starts, before we get a look at what they have, before we get a look at what everybody else has. I don't know. This is kind of Rangerish for me, because I'm really not overwhelmed by what the Mavericks have done, but I also recognize the fact that basketball is largely a game of chemistry, and you build chemistry over the course of a season. And if the season starts and they start to develop chemistry and guys fall into place with what they're expected to do, the roles that they're expected to play, then yeah, this team could be pretty dangerous. Now, championship dangerous or NBA finals dangerous, I don't know about that. I think there are too many good teams in the West that have too much great personnel for somebody like the Mavericks to sneak up on them and make it in through the back door.
We've had parimutuel wagering on horse racing now in Texas for more than 30 years. And it was expected that once that got through, that it wouldn't be long before casinos were allowed in Texas. Well, it's been more than 3 decades, and there doesn't seem to be any attention to the possibility of casino gambling in the legislature of Texas. Will we see casino gambling in Texas before we pass away from this earth?
I'm starting to think not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to require some big happening or some big event or something that makes people change their minds about it. And if we haven't seen that by now, I don't know if we're ever going to.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's out there somewhere, but your question was, will we see it? And that, I don't know. Because I agree, It's out there somewhere. It's going to happen sooner or later. But, you know, the question is when, and then the reality is that, we may not be around to see it.
Michael, you greatly helped start up the talk station, The Ticket, that has become ridiculously successful. Would you take us back to that point and what those very first discussions were when the idea was just a germ of an idea on whether or not it would work?
Well, the germ of the idea came up between myself and another guy. The other guy was Jeffrey Dunbar, who we got together because our wives were friends and our kids went to kindergarten and daycare and all that together. And our wives became friends. And we would go over to their house and hang out with them and have dinner and stuff like that. And I learned that he had some sort of nebulous history in the radio game somewhere. I think over at KRLD or somewhere like that on the business side. And we would start to talk radio and everything. But at that time, I was not in the game. He was not in the game. And that's all it was just talk. Well, I was going on vacation a lot with my then wife and young daughter. And we would go to various cities in which we would go see a baseball game. And then we'd do whatever else there was to do there. Places like Seattle, Boston, Chicago. There are probably one or two others in there as well. And all of those cities had sports radio. And all I wanted to do was drive around in the car and listen to those sports radio stations. Listen to what it sounded like. Listen to how they did what they did. Listen to, I don't know, just the vibe of the thing, the way they interacted with their callers, and see what it was really like. And I began to realize that I'd given this thing a whole lot more thought than I ever realized I had. But while going over to have dinner with Jeffrey Dunbar, we would talk about sports radio and why it wasn't here in this market, because by then it was everywhere else just about, in any kind of market of size. And there was really, as far as I could see, no good reason why it wasn't here. But this was all just me and him talking. And I never thought anything was going to come of it until one day the phone rang, and there he was on the phone saying, "I need to get together with you because I think I've got a guy who wants to play sports radio."
And that's the start of it.
And that guy was Spence Kendrick. And so Jeffrey and I got together, and he got a legal pad out and said, "All right, I want you to tell me everything that you remember about what we've talked about. Let's just go back and go through those conversations." And we spent the next 2 hours with me talking and him writing. And that is on a legal pad somewhere. In fact, this was done at the Dixie House in Lakewood. And that went down on a legal pad somewhere, and I would love to have that legal pad. I don't know where it is or if it even exists, but if you want the first tangible thing that would one day turn into the start of the ticket, that was it.
Well,
and
Mike,
that's the very genesis of it.
Mike, you became the star of that station. You held forth in afternoons in a dominant style on Afternoon Drive in the Hardline. You retired in 2019. Do you wish you hadn't?
I think whenever you leave a situation like that, part of you is going to always wish you hadn't done it. But was another part of me that said, "Man, you've done all you can do here. It's time to get out of here." And that was the part that held sway. So do I wish I hadn't done it, to get to your question? Yeah, part of me does, but there's another part of me that says, you did the right thing. If you weren't feeling it anymore, and I really kind of wasn't feeling it anymore, more the way I once did, then okay, get out of the way, give way to somebody else.
How did the nickname the Old Gray Wolf originate?
My then wife.
Oh, wait a minute. With that laughter, I'm wondering if this is a story you can tell.
I think so.
Okay.
She always called me Wolf because, at that time I had a good bit more hair than I had now. And it was also of a little, shall we say, a different tint than it is now. And she said I looked sort of wolfing, and she would always call me Wolf, which I thought, okay, cool. That's just what she calls me. That's neat and everything like that. I didn't think anything of it until after the ticket had started. And sometimes I would have to go pick up our then very young daughter from daycare and bring her up to the station and try to keep her occupied in some way while I finished up doing whatever I was doing there. And one day we walked into the place, and Gordon Keith was holding forth around several other people. I don't remember who they were, but there were 4 or 5 of them, including 2 or 3 women. And I just walked through the door, did not have time to get my bearings on what I needed to do or getting Jordan squared away or anything like that. I just walked through the door, and Gordon looked up to me and said, "Mike, does Renee have any pet names for you?" Because apparently that's what they'd been talking about. Pet names that their significant others had for them or that they might have had for them. And he said, "Mike, does Renee have any pet names for you?" And I thought about it for about 10 seconds and said, "No, not really." And then my young daughter says, "Yes, she does. Mommy calls you the wolf." And so there you go. It was out there then.
Leave it to
order,
Gordon.
Yeah, in short order, but he took it and ran with it. And in short order, it made the air. And over time, as I got older and I got grayer, old gray, and got added onto it. And for a long time, I didn't know what I really thought about all that. But, what can you do when something like that happens? You can't fight it. So you might as well just get with the program. And I did.
Mike, people know your radio journey, but I want to talk about your music journey for just a moment. You started, as I understand it, when you were very young, playing the drums. How does that segue into singing, lead singing with a band?
Well, along with playing drums, I could also sing. I wasn't a really good singer. I could do probably, sing lead on 2 or 3 songs a night, but I could sing harmony pretty well. I could find parts, and I kind of learned how to develop a ghost voice where you hear the part, but you can't really tell who's doing it, Mm-hmm. And all through the time that I was playing drums, I was also singing. And in fact, if somebody wanted me in a band, that was probably going to be the reason why, because they probably needed another singer, another voice, and there weren't many drummers around that did it. And in this last thing, Petty Theft, I stopped playing drums. In fact, every time I get on drums these days, it is an absolute disaster. But I started playing guitar and singing the songs, and here we are.
Here we are. I'm going to finish with a handful of questions, what I like to call a buzz round, and get quick answers from you.
Norm,
Here we
I've
go.
been listening to you for years and years. I've heard your buzz rounds. I know how to do this.
Best interview you've ever had? Who was your best interviewee?
Gosh, I've had a lot of good ones, including you a few weeks ago. I always liked when we got to talk to Troy Aikman. It didn't happen often, but I always liked talking to him, just because he was Troy Aikman. There were a number of Mavericks players that I used to like to interview. Derek Harper was one of those. Because if you wanted the straight scoop about what was happening with the Mavericks, Derek Harper would give it to you. Derek Harper was a very different guy when he first got here. He was young. He was a little bit on the wild side. And, he's calmed down a lot since then, gotten a little bit more squared away. but he still says what he wants to say. And I always love talking to Derek.
Is there a person you wanted to interview that you never got to interview?
Yeah, there is. I would have loved to have gotten to sit down with Tex Schramm.
With who?
Tex Schramm. Tex Schramm, the Cowboys' old general manager. Because he was the guy who conceived what the Cowboys could be. And he was the guy who was largely responsible for making that happen. And I would just love to have known him back then. I mean, by the time I got into the game, interviewing somebody like him was well out of reach for somebody like me.
Well, but, Mike, let me tell you, I got to interview Tex several times. And I have to tell you, he scared the living hell out of me.
Yeah. That's what would have been fun about it, because I mean he was a very bombastic, threatening figure. And if you asked him a question that he didn't like, number one, you were going to know it. And number two, you're probably going to have a little problem on your hands for the rest of the interview. And I was just always fascinated and interested in how I might handle somebody like him if I ever had the chance. But like I say, I was nowhere near of that. My place in the game was nowhere near high enough for that.
Can I tell you a very short Tex Schramm story?
I'd love it.
I got to this marketplace in 1972, working for Channel 4 on TV. And I got there just as the Cowboys were blossoming into something special. But in the locker room, there was a lot of grumbling going on. The players were starting to figure out just how underpaid they were compared to players on other teams. And this was a Super Bowl team, for heaven's sake. So my first summer here, I did a story in a series entitled, "Why Aren't These Men Smiling?" And we took the team picture and zoomed into the player that would be the part of that episode and they were complaining about various things and telling stories. And I wanted to have Tex on the, he wouldn't be any part of that. So Al Ward, the assistant GM, did that. So at training camp, I'm walking up. This is the old Cal Lutheran training camp where they literally lived in the dorms of training camp. And as Tom Overstreet, my cameraman, and I were walking down the hallway, all of a sudden, the door, no more than 20 feet of us, opens, and out comes Tex Schramm and turns toward us. Well, intrepid Norm says, "Mr. Schramm, I'm Norm Hitzges." And he said to me, "I know who you are." and I said, then I started shaking, Mike. And I said, "Well, Mr. Schramm, I've been trying to get you to do an interview for this series I'm running. And I wondered if you have the time now." And he looked at me. And Mike, you remember how Tex in his later years had the shakes?
Yeah.
His hand shook. And he looked at me and he pointed a shaking finger at me and said, "I don't need your kind of forum." And walked past. And Mike, I believe it was more than 2 years before he spoke to me again. Mike, he was a corn cob.
Honestly, I would have thought it would have been more than that. because he was known to hold some grudges with people.
Oh, yes. And, I honestly believe this, Mike. He died without telling anyone where all the bodies were buried.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay, next.
He took a lot of stuff with him.
Yes, he did. Next, the moment in your sports life you wish you could relive.
Oh, that's easy. 2 years ago, October 2023, when the Texas Baseball Rangers win the World Series for the first time.
Did you ever wish...
That was an easy one.
Did you ever wish you could do play-by-play?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I would have loved to do it. I still would love to do it. But I had a couple swings at it, and I don't know how suited I ever was for it. And at this stage of the game, I'm probably not very well suited for it at all. But I'd still love to do it.
You started in this market on radio in, I believe, 1979.
Correct.
Did you ever come close to leaving Dallas for another market?
I really never had that opportunity. No other markets were interested in me. So no, I did not. I never had the opportunity. I never really had the initiative to look around. Now, I did send some resumes to some places just to see what might happen. I don't know how serious I would have been. I probably wouldn't have been very serious at all. But somewhere around here, I kept all the Dear Mike, will pass letters that I got back.
Hey, Mike, look at this. I've got this framed on my desk. This is one of my many rejection notices I got for poetry I sent out. Mike, you ought to frame one of those Dear Mike, thank you very much bot notes.
God, if I only knew where those were. I know they're here somewhere. I wouldn't throw them away. I don't think.
No, you never throw away people who thought you couldn't do it. Never throw those away.
No, but I think of those people and I think I got the last laugh.
Yeah, I agree. You did. Mike, thanks for your time. Thanks for years and years and years of friendship.
I hope we have years and years of friendship more, Norman. You are one of a kind, and I love you, man.
Love you too, buddy. I'll be seeing you soon on your podcast.
Yes, you will.
And hey, one last question before you go. Why do you call your podcast Your Dark Companion? That seems like a bit of a foreboding name.
Yeah, it really doesn't fit with the podcast too much, but I needed a name for it. And whenever I need a name for anything, I always go to Steely Dan lyrics. And in the Steely Dan song, The Royal Scam, there is a line about their dark companion. So I altered it slightly and appropriated it. But yeah, it kind of bothers me a little bit that it sounds all foreboding and it might be a mystery thing, like a mystery podcast or a whodunit podcast or something like that. And it's really not. What it is just a podcast where I get people that I've been fortunate enough to know and develop some sort of rapport with over the years, just like you, and get them in here and see if I can get them to tell their story.
Thanks for all those stories, buddy. And next up, we've got a tip of the hat to the Rangers. Well, What do you want from your favorite restaurant? Fantastic personal service? A cheery, welcoming, spotless atmosphere? And, of course, great food. The primest of beef, wagyu and lamb, incredibly fresh seafood, lobster, salmon, shrimp. Hall of Fame food from a Hall of Fame restaurant. 2 locations of Bob's Steak and Chop House, the original Bob's on Lemon Avenue, and the gorgeous new Bob's at Craig Ranch, McKinney. My wife Mary is the co-creator of Full Moon Healing Balm, and I guess I'm the reason this terrific cream was developed. A few years ago, I began getting these huge, ugly blood blotches just beneath the skin of my arms and hands. The condition's called senile purpura. And no, you don't have to be senile to experience this embarrassment. It happens as you age. And then to cover it up, we begin wearing long sleeves even when it's hot. It took 2 years working with a New Jersey lab to refine the all-natural ingredients of Full Moon Healing. Gently massage a very small amount into the skin, and within a day, the blotches begin to fade. Senile purpura usually takes weeks to disappear, but this balm cuts the timeline to about a week. And ordering's so easy. Just go to the website, fullmoonhealingco.com. I don't know how the Rangers are doing this. How are they hanging so close to the edge of the wild card standings? They're doing it with a lineup that doesn't have Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia, Nathan Uvalde, Tyler Mahle, John Gray and Evan Carter are gone for the year. Sam Haggerty's out. The lineup is a patchwork quilt every night. And names like Cody Freeman and Michael Hellman are playing significant roles. They never figured to be here this season. But with all the injuries, you got to have somebody in a uniform playing the game. You know who I credit for all this? I credit Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy is such a calming figure. When you're down, Bruce Bochy's the same person. When you're up, Bruce Bochy's the same person. And that type of approach over a 6-month season, I think, is one of the big reasons Bruce Bochy is one of the most successful managers in Rangers history.
And now a word from our title sponsor. Today's episode has been brought to you by Fluent Financial, Retire Earlier, Live Better, and by Bob's Steak and Chop House on Lemon in Dallas and in Craig Ranch in McKinney. Bob's, a Dallas tradition for more than 30 years.
If you've enjoyed Just Wondering, please hit follow, and a fresh new episode will land in your mailbox early every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. Should you know a sports fan who might like our work, please share our contact information with that person. Just Wondering is technically directed by my wife Mary, who is also occasionally a talent on the show. It's produced by Mike Matern, edited and posted by Ashley Bullington. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Just Wondering. I'm Norm Hitzges, and know that every day I'll be just wondering about something.
And I'm Mary Hitzges, and I'll just be wondering too.
This This is a Stolen Water Media production.